Since I started my channel, I have gotten so many requests to review a Hellcat, and finally we have it. This is the 2021 Hellcat Widebody, 717 horsepower from a supercharged 6.2-liter V8, and I will tell you today, after I review it, drive it, go over the interior, exterior, everything, I'll tell you if I think you should buy a family sedan that goes almost 200 miles per hour. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Adam Drives LA. If you're new to the channel, my name is Adam and I drive the coolest cars on LA's most iconic roads. Now today's car is the brand new 2021 Dodge Charger Hellcat Widebody. Today we're going to go over the exterior design, the interior features, and of course the overall driving experience of a 717 horsepower family sedan. Speaking of the drive, when you purchase your Hellcat, you're going to get two sets of keys. You get a black key that restricts you to only 500 horsepower. This is for when you want to lend the car out or give it to a valet and you don't want them to have access to life-threatening kind of power. Today we have that life-threatening kind of power. We have the other key. This is the red key. You get all 717 horsepower. This is so we can truly experience the power that's underneath this car, because I have to do a review that gives you the maximum potential of a sedan like this. So if you enjoy these kind of quick reviews where I go through the inside, the outside, and the drive, and at the end I tell you if I think you should buy this car or not, I invite you to scroll down, subscribe to the channel, hit me with a like while you're down there. Without any further ado, let's get right into the exterior design. Now starting with the front, this is where you're going to notice the major changes compared to a regular Charger. You see all your vents up here and all of them are real. They're actually open, even the ones up on top of the hood. Down here, you're going to notice your big SRT badge. A lot of ventilation. You need this for a car with this kind of power. Notice this one here. This is separate from the rest. This vent leads directly into the radiator. Again, a car with this kind of power, you really need to cool all aspects, every component of the engine. Now, as we wrap around the side, you'll notice the gold wheels with the red Brembo brake calipers that say SRT on them. This looks great in this Nordic gray with the contrast on the wheels. This is a custom order by the customer, a one of one when you put all the specs together. Now, as we wrap around the side, you'll notice this is something every Hellcat should have had from day one. I think this should be standard. You don't need to get up to the wide body. It should have been on every Hellcat, the wide body. This adds about 3.5 inches to every side of this car, which has been necessary from day one. The main problem all Hellcats have had, they were not able to put the power down on the ground. So they had tons of power, but traction was always an issue. So now we have wider tires because we have a wider fender on every side. Oddly enough, because you have wider tires in the front, mind you, these are 305s, wider than most Corvette rear tires, which are known to be super wide. Because you have such wide wheels up front, this creates a ton of drag, which essentially makes this a little bit slower when it comes to 0 to 60 times. But because you're able to put the power down, it is the faster one over a Charger Hellcat that would not have the wide body. Now, as we go around the rest of this side, if you remove the wide body and you take out the Hellcat logo, this really is just essentially a $30,000 Charger. All Chargers kind of look alike, and it's a shame that you're paying over $75,000 for a car that is gonna look to most people who are not into cars like your typical car that you see at a rental place. The Chargers are everywhere. We've all seen them for so many years. They haven't changed much. That body side, the doors, door handle, the overall shape hasn't really changed. So you'll notice the little spoiler at the end. You'll notice a few extra vents, the wider body, but other than that, you're not gonna see too many changes over the regular Chargers. Jay Leno.
What the heck?
Other than that, there aren't too many ways to tell apart this from a regular Charger, mainly if you take away the wide body. So while we're back here, let's take a quick look at the cargo area. Of course, all Chargers have always had a pretty deep cargo area, but there's of course no features, there's no luxury, there's nothing really to talk about back here. But I do have the window sticker, and as you can see, the Hellcat Widebody for 2021 has this one a total MSRP of $76,255. We'll put this away, and since we're already partially on the inside, let's dive into the interior. Now, as we get inside, one thing you notice immediately is for a $76,000 price point, This is a really low rent interior. I've been in a lot of Chargers in the past, and I'm talking models from about 8 years ago that still share pretty much the same interior. The trim is the worst part. You still have this fake kind of plastic up here. You have a ton of plastic here. This steering wheel, I mean, this cover probably costs maybe 50 cents to make. It's just not what you expect. I know they say this car is all about power. It's not about luxury, but still at $76,000, everything else has carbon fiber. If it's not carbon fiber, it's a wood trim, it's aluminum, it's really nice feeling levers. This still, everything is just cheap. There is some Alcantara here on the steering wheel, which will wear over time, but that's probably the nicest material. This does not have the optional suede up here, so you're just missing so much that you normally get by default at that price point. Now, I've reviewed a bunch of FCA products recently, so they all go and share the same Uconnect system, so I'm not going to go too in detail. You can check out some of my other videos for that, but I'll show you what's unique to this, the Hellcat. First off, you have your red analog gauges. Mind you, they go all the way to 200 miles per hour. Now, you will reach about 197, so it is pretty accurate. There's not a ton to do in here. As you scroll through, it's just going to give you some of the information that pretty much every car will give you. Your messages, your Bluetooth stuff, some of your, miles per gallon, reaction time. This is probably the unique items to the SRT Hellcat. So, besides tire pressure and all that, it's just not that special in here. It's not too configurable like a lot of the digital dashes that you get these days in this price point. We'll move over to the Uconnect system that I have shown you. It is responsive, it's nice, it's just nothing close to an MBUX or BMW's iDrive. It's just not close to any of those because it doesn't have a lot to offer. It's a responsive system, it's a smaller screen, it's surrounded by so much cheap material, you just don't love it. So although it is a quicker, nicer item to use, there's just not a lot to do here. So I will go into your settings, or I should say your apps, and you're gonna go into your SRT dashboard. This is where all the cool stuff is. So your launch control, you can edit here, you can move this around. I can literally drag it to where the RPM that I wanna launch at, which is optimal. Now we do have the wider tires, so this is now actually gonna make a difference. Whereas in the past, traction control on or off, you just couldn't get any traction in a car like a Hellcat. Now, as we go through some of the settings, you have your track, sport, custom, auto. These are your drive modes. Here it tells you we have the red key, you have 717 horsepower. So I'm not gonna put it crazy into track mode. This is just gonna kill us on Mulholland Drive. So we'll keep it on sport, which is just somewhat kind of giving you a ton of control, but still keeping you alive. I would say this is your insurance policy up here. As I go back into the SRT dashboard, we're gonna go through some of these. Here are your race options. This is line lock. This is if you're gonna do your burnouts before a race or anything like that, so we can activate that. We're not gonna do it. We're not doing any burnouts. We're driving this thing respectfully. Here's your launch control. Again, I can set it to where I want, which is awesome. If my tires are starting to bald a little bit, I can bring the RPM a little bit lower to give me a little bit less of the power up front, but definitely give me the grip I'm looking for. My shift light, I can move this thing around, so I like where it is. Race cool down, this will help you cool down after a race, so these are great. This is things that people used to have to pay for and put ice on their car, do all kinds of things to cool the car down after a race. So we now have that already installed in here. So these are some of the cool things in the SRT dashboard. So moving away from this Uconnect system, you're gonna see down here, again, like I said, ton of plastic. This looks and feels so cheap. You have your SRT button here, your launch control. These are the cooler things, the more important things that you don't get with the other Charger models. Going down here, some storage pockets here and there. You've got your cup holder. This, I have always said I hate in all of these FCA products, this big, clunky, ugly shifter. This lever is just so not necessary. We have dials, we have buttons. Lincoln had these little switches. Everything can be done so elegantly, and yet the Charger Dodge keeps this around. I hate it. It looks like something from a 90s car as long as you cover this part of it. Don't like it. You have some more storage over here. You have your seats, which say SRT on it. It looks good, and there is this suede, or it's not Alcantara, I'm pretty sure that's suede with leather. So it looks and feels okay, but it's a little bit too wide, and I am a 200-pound, 6'2" guy, and I still can really move around in it, so they should have been a little bit tighter. But overall, I'm gonna say, don't expect a lot of luxury in here. Like I said, even in here, there's no real, you have a couple of outlets for USBs, but everything, again, is really cheap. Everything feels cheap. So don't expect to get a sub like close to $100,000 car interior. You're still gonna get a very much $30,000, $35,000 car interior. Let's jump into the rear seats and see what else that has to offer. Now, other than being a little bit roomier than most other of these mid-size sedans, you just still don't get too much. You have your heated seats back here. There is room. Now, I have okay headroom, but it's weird because my head is right on the glass, not on the fabric. So if we hit a bump, I mean, I might go right through this thing. So we have to be careful with that sitting back here if you're a taller person. Again, the seats are pretty nice back here. They still have that center Alcantara, but look at this. I don't even have anything that drops down here. So like I said, don't expect anything luxurious on pretty much any level. Now that we've gone over the exterior design, the interior features, it's time to take this thing on a drive. Now to do that, we are on the iconic Mulholland Drive, which is 21 miles of twisting and turning roads, which I don't know how ideal that is with a car like this. Rear wheel drive, 717 horsepower, supercharged V8. So it's time to get religious. We're gonna try and get through this. But I have to say, this is just not the optimal place to test a car like this. This needs a drag strip, so we're gonna try what we can. I didn't know. All right, so when you're driving a Hellcat, everyone knows what they're expecting. First thing we have to do, let's feel it. Okay, no traction whatsoever, and we have traction on, so we now found the most useless button in this car is the traction control. Wide body or not, there's just no traction. You have a 6.2 liter supercharged V8 making 717 horsepower, 650 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds. Again, this is a family sedan that can reach about 200 miles per hour. So don't expect traction, don't expect to drive wildly on roads like this. Give it a little bit of power and just hang on for dear life. So as you can see, this is just not a car you can drive very enthusiastically, very athletically. You kind of have to wait for the right time, the right place, the right prep to do what you want to do and really enjoy the power. This is not a car like an M4, an M3, any kind of, you know, car that's really meant for canyon carving. You can't do any of that with this. Even in the straight line, you're kind of fighting to keep the wheel straight. There's, like I said, traction control is just non-existent on this car. So the power delivery itself, believe it or not, I hate to say this, but I expected it to feel a little bit faster, feel a little bit scarier. I think that's because it's such a heavy car that, believe it or not, the power delivery is just smooth. It really doesn't throw you back immediately, partially because you're losing traction as you're going, so you don't get that immediate grip, that immediate throw that you would get in a lighter V8. And after I drove, you know, after I owned my Corvette, that's when I learned a light car with a ton of power is as fun as it gets. As much power as this car has, you can't necessarily call it a fun car because it's so selective where you can have fun that just doesn't qualify. It's just not in that same category. But overall, you know, as much as I'm saying I expected the power to be a little bit better and stronger, I did expect the handling to be a little bit worse. The handling is not as bad as you think. It's sharper than you expect. You know, this still, at the end of the day, they have turned it into a performance car. You do feel the heavyweight, you do feel some body roll, but steering wheel feels nice. It feels just responsive enough. Otherwise, I was gonna complain that it's just not responsive enough. I expected it to be that way. It's really not. But you know, the amount of power that you get, and just, there are two things here. You get the sound that puts a smile on your face, the sound of the exhaust, and you get the sound of that supercharger whine. And oh my God, I mean, I honestly feel like they should do background checks for anybody who's gonna get this car, just like owning a weapon, because at $75,000, this is just so much accessible power, and it's so reckless. You know, when you get a C8 Corvette for about $60,000, $70,000, yes, it's a ton of power for not too much money, but it's a very controllable car. It's very anticipated. You can feel what the car is gonna do. This car is just, it has a mind of its own, and you're just along for the ride for the most part. Now we do have to mention, of course, that wide body. Now it is meant for more grip, it is meant for a little bit better handling, so I suppose it is better, but I have not driven a Hellcat that was not a wide body, so I don't know if I should compare it to that or not. But that was the goal with the wide body, is to make it a little bit more drivable, a little bit more usable power. And of course, you do know in 2021 the power is now bumped up by 10 horsepower to 717 instead of 707. 650 pound-feet of torque, still the same as last year's figures. Again, the traction just limits it so much. If I'm getting this car, the first thing I'm doing is getting really sticky tires, really just drag radials, because like I said, you can't use this anywhere else. It's just ridiculous amount of power that the car simply cannot handle. Now that we've driven this thing and we kind of went over the whole car, let me pull over and give you my final thoughts on whether I think you should buy this car or not. Alright, so after driving this thing around for pretty much the whole day, here are my final thoughts. Generally, you're getting one thing with this car, and that is immense power, insane power, power that this car can barely handle unless you do some modifications to it. So is $76,000 worth that kind of a car? You're gonna have to make up your mind if you care that much about power. If you're looking for any kind of nice interior features, you're not gonna get that. Not with this car. You have to go to the German brands in this price point to get all of that. So you're not getting that. You're really getting just American muscle, old school, horrible gas mileage, massive car with insane power, and you really have to be lucky to not fly off a road with this thing. So, do I suggest that you get one or not? You get 797 horsepower with the red eye, and it's only $8,600. I would suggest, if you are the kind of person that would consider a Hellcat something that just does one thing really well and nothing else, get the red eye. Don't get the regular Hellcat wide body. Those are my final thoughts. So if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, scroll down, hit the like button, follow me on Instagram. The handle is the same as the name of the channel, Adam Drives LA. I will see you in the next car.